Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing, and you're in for a treat today because it's always a treat to be around Art Still. I did some broadcasting with him back in the day. He's a delightful person. He bounds around. He's outgoing, and he was a heck of a football player for the Kansas City Chiefs. He grew up in New Jersey. There were some great athletes around there. A couple of them, he and Aaron Ramsey, went together to the University of Kentucky, where they had some of the best years in the history of the Kentucky Wildcats football team, 1977, 78. They were great teams. He ended up being the number 2 pick in the draft for the Kansas City Chiefs, who would have a remarkably accomplished career starting just about right off the bat. He was all-pro many times. He had an unofficial 14.5 sacks in one year. He did that another year as well. The Chiefs weren't very good during that time, but he was very good, and then he spent the last couple of years his career on very good Buffalo Bill teams in the late 80s, and actually played in a couple playoff games, which he hardly did with the Kansas City Chiefs. And all the while, he was having himself a family, a big family. He's got 11 children, 24 grandchildren, takes up a lot of his time, and he's done all kinds of great sales work and initiatives, and you'll hear all about it. He's a delightful storyteller, a cool guy, a Ring of Honor member for the Kansas City Chiefs, and so much more. Kansas City Profiles, a delightful conversation with Art Still, coming up next, presented by Easton Roofing.
Did you experience hail damage last year and never got the work done? Most insurance companies only give you a year to get the roof fixed, and if you don't get it done, you could possibly not be compensated in full for the replacement of your roof. If you've been procrastinating getting that damaged roof taken care of, give us a call at 913-257-5426, and we'll send out an expert to help you through the process. We're never pushy, we're just here to help. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
We're here at the 23rd Street Brewery with Matt Llewellyn. And Matt, basketball's over, football's still a few months away, but there's always fun to be had at the 23rd Street Brewery.
Absolutely. We've always got something going on here. The games are always going on. It's a great place to come enjoy everything out on the patio. Beautiful scenery out there. Great beer. I've got a great brewer, great food. It's always fun here at the brewery.
And the atmosphere is great and friendly and warm, too.
We always want to make sure you're a lot happier when you leave than you were when you came in.
Always fun here at the 23rd Street Brewery at 23rd and Castle. Make sure to come by when you're in Lawrence. If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business to Kansas City's #1 variety podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you. Art, you grew up in the Centerville section of Camden, New Jersey. Obviously, it was the late 50s and headed into the 60s. What was life like for you there with a big family in Camden, New Jersey?
Well, it was, I had 5 sisters and 4 other brothers, and we grew up in the projects, basically on welfare and all growing up. But, it was just kind of funny and all, too, because it was, a pop didn't have much as far as money-wise. I had a great mother-in-law, man, that I always tell people my first official coach and all, but she coached me all through my life and all, too, so to speak. But it was, it was rough growing up. But when I realized it was rough was when I went to college at the University of Kentucky and all. That people said, "How did you live that lifestyle?" But I grew up in an environment, man, I figure everybody else is living that same way and all. And we survived, and there's a lot of things that we learned, and especially for myself, that has helped me through my life and all, too. Not only growing up, but also dealing with my own kids, sports, and life in general and all, too. So there was a lot of, good things that we learned from an environment that people might thought was a negative environment, but has helped me and got me where I'm at right now now, so to speak.
Well, also, you're obviously a big guy. When did you start to get big? You would grow to 6'7" with a big wingspan and, be a basketball and football player. But were you always big?
Well, I think, it's just kind of funny because people always now, especially now, people ask the question, how you get so big and all. And again, I always sometimes, or, my size and all, I'm thinking, how to create this. But again, it's just like anything else. We make fun of one another, different sizes, short, fat, medium, whatever you want to call it, light, dark, or whatever. But it's, just come to the realization, man, that, it's through our genes and all. And through my parents and all, too, that, my size, how I look, I had no control over, but how I maintained it was a difference and all, too.
Right.
But as far as growth and wise, my father, he was about 6'3", 6'4". I got a brother about 6'7", 6'8". Got a couple on 6'4" and 6'2". Then I got a sister, a couple sisters about over 6 foot tall and all, too. So I think it's in the genes somewhat. And that's basically, I can't take any claims on my height, my size. I didn't create this.
That's true. When did that start to translate into success athletically as you were growing up?
Well, as a young person growing up in the projects and all, too, basically our sports was centered around just what happened within, the projects. I mean, when you say Centerville, Centerville had different projects and all. I lived in the Roosevelt Manor, you had Franceville, you had Shelton Terrace. There was different areas and all, too. But as far as, the talent and learning things was right in that little community that we had right there. There was a lot of other young folks that I grew up with that had athletic abilities and all, and that's all we did. Sports was our means of entertainment, so to speak. And, I contribute to those ones when, young, we was out there playing, we couldn't afford a football. So we used to throw an oatmeal box, Quaker Oats box. That used to be our football until you squashed and threw it out of, you couldn't play the game no more, so to speak. And, I think, too, grow up in that environment, man, you're just a little bit more innovative as far as doing things because you can afford nothing.
Right.
And I think that helped us in those areas, and then realizing, too, sports is a means of using our athletic skills to get a scholarship. Otherwise, we probably would never went to school and all, too.
You won state championships and had great records in football, and you had some talented other players. You've said in multiple articles that there were other guys who were better than you. They couldn't have been that much better. But anyway, what was that like to have that kind of success that would obviously lead you to the University of Kentucky?
Well, there were, and when you make the statement, too, about other guys, man, we had a lot of talented guys. We had one guy, Darryl Lee, we used to call him Doc Lee. He was about 6'4", 6'5", and he probably weighed about 230, 235. He could play basketball and football and all, too. He had the opportunity to get a scholarship down at Grambling and all. Only thing, I think that kind of sets me apart from maybe some of the fellows and all, too. And there's another guy, Derek Ramsey. Ramsey, we went to school together at University of Kentucky together. Derek thrived. He played in the NFL with the Raiders and Detroit and all. And he's still very successful in what he's doing. And I think, and like I said, I keep reverting back. There's a lot of guys that I played with that had, more athletic ability than me and all, so to speak. But I think it was more so realizing that it's not just your athletic ability. You got to get the grades to get you in the right direction and all, too. And I know even with my high school coach, Coach Andy Henson, my parents, Miss Cream, who was the principal of Camden High School, and had a great, support system. I even had my 5th grade teacher, who I still stay in touch now. He's over 80 years old. And we stay in touch on a consistent basis. His name is Steve Coach. All those were the support team. My parents and all, my mother was the number one person that kept me getting the right direction and all. Because in order to participate in sports, she said you had to get your grades and all. And she stood by her words and all in reference to that. So there was a combination of things. And then, then as an individual, it's a matter of taking that information and applying it. And not saying I applied it correctly, but there's things I learned as I went along and all that at first, you question things, but especially those in adults that kind of live life, they knew things, they can have a little foresight for you and all. And then as I went along the way and made a mistake here and there, finally realized, okay, maybe these are the folks I need to listen to continuously to get me through life and all, so to speak.
When it came time to choose a college, tell us about that process. You'd obviously end up at Kentucky and have some of the greatest years in the history of their football program in the end, but how did you get pointed towards Kentucky?
Well, the school that I really wanted to go was in the Big Tens and all, in the Big Ten Conference and all. Me and Derek Ramsey, I was telling you about, we played, high school football, and same thing. We won the state in football and basketball that year and all. And me and Derek we had like a pact together and all that we was going to go to school together, because there's nothing like having good support and all. And Derek and I think we looked at each other the same way, how we supported one another and all. And Derek was a quarterback. I was, defensive player and all too. I played tight end too in college. High school. But so we visit, from Minnesota, Michigan, University of Michigan and all too. I think we was thinking about Michigan State. That was a school that either Michigan or Michigan State that I don't even know if we signed something too. But then again, we had opportunity through our coach, Andy Henson, who was our coach of our football team, our high school football team. He knew about Kentucky, and Coach Fran Kersey was fairly new up there. I think it was going on his second year there. And he kind of reasoned me. Coach Henson, man, was like he was a father figure. He gave me some good directions and all too, not only in sports but in life in general too. But he made sense. He said, the thing is, he said, nice thing about maybe going to Kentucky and all is, good school for education. He said, but the thing is, you also have the opportunity too of going to a school that's known for basketball, of coming in and having the opportunity of maybe starting and maybe creating yourself a name too. And, that advice, I went with that and all too, and it made a lot of sense. And, the outcome turned out pretty good for me and all too.
It certainly did, and you had great years there. And but what was from a personal standpoint, what was the adjustment like for somebody in the mid '70s going from New Jersey to Kentucky?
Oh, it was as far as ratio of, I grew up in a town, and again, my mother always taught me there's different shades of folks and all, but it was the school I went to, it was blacks and Puerto Ricans. And back then, a lot of tension was going on. Racial tension was going on all over. And so, coming from the inner city, we used to play the parochial schools, the suburb school, and that was like a battle. Not just with sports, that was just a battle. Because, got the different shades of color. And then making that change from, going to Camden High School, which class was just predominantly, black or Puerto Rican. Maybe had 2 or 3, white people in the school, so to speak. And going to Kentucky, it was a drastic change and all in reference to ratio of folks and all. Then even on a team, it was the same thing. You had the ratio of combination, blacks and white playing together. So it was somewhat of an adjustment. But then again, with sports has a way of creating family and all. And so even though coming from Camden, from the inner city, and I can give you a good example and all too. It was just kind of funny because it was one of the schools when I went to Camden High, Bishop Hughes was a parochial school out in the suburbs and all. It was, rich, as they would say, rich white people who live out there and all. So it was like a battle, man, and that we had playing against them. And it was almost like a hatred in a sense, not only sports, but just, the haves and the have-nots, so to speak. And it was just kind of funny because when I went to Kentucky and all, it just so happened one of the guys on the team was a couple of years older than me, but it was Rick Fromm, who we played against each other and battled against each other and all. Now all of a sudden, I'm on the same team with Rick Fromm, who went to Bishop Hughes, which we hated, so to speak. And it was just, it was almost like a bond that, sports does, man, is having opportunities playing guys from Georgia, from Florida, from all over the country and all, different shades of folks.